And so I've been kind of engrossed in that, uh,
Hmm.
trying to keep track with news stuff that I've been seeing. But otherwise, that's what I've been doing.
New goodness. I have been doing a lot of the same. As you guys know from the previous episodes, I got hired to be a web developer for the development department at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. I actually start that job tomorrow at 8 o'clock. So I'm employed again. Yay! So
Awesome. Congratulations.
I've been spending the past week wrapping up commissions and housework, and also dealing with. We just sent out. Of course, I'm getting married early October, so we sent
Woo!
out. The future mother-in-law sent out some registry invites, and some people have been sending the stuff they bought straight to our apartment. So I've been having to deal. It's a good thing I didn't start working this week because I've had to deal with collecting all of the UPS drop-offs at our front door, and then doing houseworks, and just figured out that because it's been raining, every species of wolf spider has been taking shelter in my patio.
Oh,
I was closing the door to light the grill, and I opened the I think I reached into charcoal, and this 2.5 inch long wolf spider jumps out from behind this bag of charcoal that I'm reaching into, and after my initial heart attack, I'm like, okay, we've got to take care of this. I've been vacuuming and raiding the hell out of everything outdoors for the past couple of days.
Yeah, I bet that's been a lot of fun.
That has been exciting, let me tell you. Otherwise, buying new furniture, just typical stuff. It's like, well, we got, can't, I'm not home all day, so we gotta break timelines into things. So it's interesting. My picked up a new couch yesterday, and that's getting delivered tomorrow. Our current one that we've had for a year and a half is the spring's broken. It's falling in. It's like you sit in it, it kind of eats you alive. So it's been a full week. I'm sure next week will be full too, but doing stuff that's not domestic, I guess.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, wait till your wedding date comes around. Yeah, you're really
right.
gonna have a full week going on.
Well, I got drafted into photographing our own bridal shower. So next Saturday I'm doing event photography, but not getting paid for it. That's what I'm trying to say. But but that's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a nice dry run to Dragon Con. I'm trying to get. I've got two SLRs. I've got a Canon 5D Mark II, which is just amazing. It's the thing they shot a good bit of Iron Man 2 with. Fantastic camera. But I've also got a Canon Rebel T2i, which is basically the same camera but on a smaller body. And I'm gonna experiment with shooting videos and photos at the wedding shower or the bridal shower, because I'm going to try to do the same thing when I'm at Dragon Con. Get some video coverage at the venues, and then photos of everything. And
Yeah.
the fun part about Dragon Con is everything, and I've mentioned a couple times. We'll talk about this in depth, but the whole convention, and a lot of people think about conventions. They picture Comic-Con, which is just one big exhibit hall with a bunch of bays you go into for like the conference panels, and and the vendor walk that is huge, goes on for miles, almost literally. But Dragon Con is stretched out over 6 different hotel buildings in downtown Georgia, downtown Atlanta. So every one of them, and none of them are made. None of them are made to house that many people. It's always a living nightmare walking through there. But none of them have really, and maybe it's the mood lighting they do for Dragon Con. I don't know, because one of them has like neon lighting, and that's it. It's like there's no actual lighting in one of the floors, but they all have different lighting conditions. That's gonna be it's gonna be a fun chunk of fun photography weekend.
Oh yeah. Make sure you wear some comfortable shoes.
Right, and I'm doing this in costume too. I've got a few Doctor Who costumes planned out and stuff like that, and that's going to be challenging. But I was reading Tested.com, and Norm from Tested is big into photography too, and he was he was just like, Dragon Con is just an absolute nightmare, because he shot with a flash. He never really shot with a flash before, and other photographers are like, yeah, I was shooting on ISO 54,000, and I'm sitting here thinking, like, even though your camera can do that, I don't know if you're supposed to, but because it's absolute low light, and the Mark II can probably handle it because it doesn't have a built-in flash, like that's how good its sensor is. But but I kind of fear for the T2i because it doesn't. I haven't ever shot anything that low light with them before, but so I don't know how the video is gonna come out. But I guess I'll find out in 2 weeks.
Yeah, yeah. Man, my uncle, when he goes to WonderCon, he has like a 2-in-1 camera. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
a little old camera about the size of his palm. And he's taken some really good video and really good pictures also.
I saw a
And it always
camera. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, that's okay. I was just gonna say it always works out for him, and
Yeah.
he's always happy every time he sees his pictures and videos and stuff. And so
Yeah.
yeah, it eventually works out.
There's one I want to get that you guys have seen those Micro Four Thirds cameras that they're like SLRs, but they're in like a smaller body. They don't have the mirrors and everything in it, right? Popular Photo had in their latest issue had one that was like the sensor was connected to the back of the lens mount, and you hooked it onto your phone like a phone case, and it used your phone as the viewfinder, and then you could attach any lens you wanted to it. And it was only like $400 for the body, and then however much the lens is. So I really want to get that and go with it because I know when I travel, even carrying around the Rebel, it always feels a little too big. But that would be almost a happy medium. I want to rent it and try it out and see if the photos are any good because growing up with SLRs and digital SLRs, it seems like to me it's like smartphone cameras. It seems like it may not be as good of a quality, but it could just be me being an old guy too. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
Get off my lawn with your tiny cameras.
they have said. I mean, I remember at one. I'm not a big photography expert, but
Mm-hmm.
they have said that black and white photography from way back when still has a higher resolution than we're able to duplicate at the moment.
Yeah.
So, like, I would not doubt if there is something going on there.
Yeah, because now that we don't have film, it doesn't capture all that detail. I mean, sensors are good, but they don't capture enough. And I've heard that theory mentioned before, especially with like the full, the large format ones where you're shooting on like an 8.5 by 11 size negative. There's no way you can have a 2 by 3 inch digital sensor capture that much detail at all. Even shooting in RAW and with 40 megapixels, like Pentax's new medium format one, there's just no way you can still capture that kind of detail. It's maybe by the time I have kids in college, maybe digital will catch up with that kind of resolution. But oh man, it's gonna be great. I actually kind of like the higher ISOs, and this is what kind of excites me about shooting with it in a weird way because it adds grain to a photo. And I know a lot of modern photographers are like, no, you don't want that. You don't want that. Well, that's kind of the charm with film photo, it always has that grain to it, to the extent that in Premiere and After Effects with film, there's actually a filter to add grain back into digital footage because it feels more normal to a viewing audience.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can vouch for that. I've seen
Yeah.
that on After Effects, and yeah, it does. It actually looks
It
kind
does
of
a
nice
great
like that
job.
too
Yeah.
at times.
It's
Yeah.
really nice.
Uh-huh.
And then there are some people too, like Robert Rodriguez, or like whenever you see he did this in Grindhouse too. I think it was Planet Terror. He went and like added his own like hand digital scratches into the film, so it looked like it was an old shitty Super 8 film he had found somewhere.
Mhm.
And just like it's especially After Effects, it's crazy what you can do with those. Pardon me. I'm having a
Yeah.
hard time breathing today, apparently. But
And
yeah,
that was,
it's amazing what you can do with that.
yeah. I was gonna say with black and white photos. I love actually black and white. I don't know why. It just somehow it has a nice appearance to the picture
Mm-hmm.
whenever you're taking. I mean, when I went to San Francisco, I accidentally switched my camera to black and white without knowing, and I took like 3 or 4 pictures. I
Yeah.
had posted it with all the other pictures, and when I brought them home and I took a really good look, and I was like, hey, those aren't too bad after all. I was kind of disappointed, but I was like, I kept them anyway.
Yeah,
And
yeah. It's exciting what you can do when you don't expect it.
yeah, they weren't that bad after all, and I really liked them. And
Hmm.
but yeah, black and white's not too bad. I mean, it
Not
it
not at
kind
all.
of
Not
catch
at
you
all.
off guard, but when you really look at the photo and into it, it's really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is, and it's interesting with black and white because you can take an average-looking photo and you can add like a red filter or high contrast black and white filter in Photoshop, and you can take an average or below average photo and just make it amazing, which is great. Black and white is still one of my absolute favorite mediums to shoot in, and I think the only reason I'm not doing photography now instead of web design is because our initial photo instructor at UNA was an absolute moron. He would arbitrarily assign photographers to you. It didn't matter like which one you were inspired by or whatever. He would be like, okay, you're going to study Null or somebody, or one of the old like crime scene photographer guys. And he's like, you're going to emulate that photography. And it's like, what if I like Ansel Adams? He's like, no, you are going to do this guy. And he always had some story about how we live in Alabama and we can't emulate Ansel Adams because we don't have a desert we can readily go to. And it's like, well, it's not the best answer to it. And I'm just like, I think after a semester, I'm like, I'm not going to take any more classes with this guy.
The only one in charge. I mean, was he the only one doing the photo classes?
Well, there was another guy, and ironically, I wound up taking studio photo as an advanced elective and worked with him, and as well as he did the advanced digital media classes. So I worked with him anyway. But everyone took it because the second year, the second half guy you took was amazing, and he was very open minded and he was very sink or swim. He was very cruel tutelage, but he let you kind of figure out what you wanted to shoot. That wasn't him arbitrarily saying you should do it. And so you had to get through the first one to get to him. And after the first semester, it's like, well, do I want to take another semester to get to the awesome guy? It's like how much more of this guy can I tolerate? I think everyone has a professor like that somewhere. My initial art history teacher was the same way too. She would give exams on. She would give a study guide and then give an exam that wasn't based on the material she told you to study, and somehow I had her for 2 semesters. It's like, I like the material enough, I just don't like you. So transferring to UNA and not having to talk to her ever again was probably the best decision ever, because I think I would have just gone crazy otherwise. and again, I think we've all had at least one or two of those professors. Hopefully we're not those people to other ones, but you never know, right?
Yeah, you never know. Sometimes I worry about that. I just
go to rate my professors and see what grade they're giving you.
Yeah. I mean, well, and then you get the student evaluations, and most of the time they're like, taught the material well, but then you get that one person, well, like for me, who has a relative who's like in web development. And I teach designers.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so I teach designers, so I have a completely different, attack plan when I'm dealing with designers.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually had an issue last spring. Her boyfriend was in web development, and he was so ticked off that I wasn't teaching them JavaScript. And I'm like, these are designers, not programmers. I'm not teaching them JavaScript in Web 1.
Yeah.
And so...
Even then, he was probably one of those. It's like, well, they should know it anyway.
Yeah. Oh, and especially with programming. And so when evaluations came around, I knew exactly which one was her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's her when it's the only one that mentions JavaScript. It's bad. It's bad when you're judging a relationship based on what you think they're not learning. It's like, well, just give it time. You're a first semester student, for crying out loud.
Yeah, and first semester design. I mean,
Yeah.
It's one of those things where the argument has been made. Should I even be teaching them HTML and CSS?
Yeah.
So I mean, JavaScript just seems like a no-brainer to not even touch.
It really does. It's just, it's in a lot of ways. I mean, you can do a lot with it. Maybe if they knew I don't know. There's an argument to be made both ways, and I've kind of stuck myself in that rut personally, professionally, because I'm a designer, but I do find myself coding and creating in HTML, JavaScript, CSS, touching on Ruby on Rails. I find myself doing that, but I find myself there happenstantially. I don't remember a specific situation where I'm like, well, I'm a designer, but I really need to pound out this JavaScript.
Yeah, and that's what I tell my students. I mean, as long as the HTML and the CSS will give them a good framework, but really there's so many different ways you can take it. I mean, you can make the argument, why am I teaching them JavaScript? Why aren't I teaching them, something else like PHP? And there's too much. So I try to do a foundation.
Yeah, but especially nowadays, and I remember it was a conversation at ITT too. We had a big conversation. It's like, well, they're drafters and visual communicators. Why do they need to learn interactive stuff? It's like, well, you don't have. I was talking through my experience. I'm like, you don't have the client who comes up and is like, I need a T-shirt made. Now, and that's it. Nowadays, you have the clients that are like, I need a T-shirt made because it's going to look like this website. Oh, and you need to make that too. Please and thank you. Even if it's just updating a WordPress site, being able to learn. I mean, students that I have, and you have this situation too, don't even know how to code in, hyperlinks most of the time. And a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't realize that. It's like you have the clients who are like, well, why don't you know this? It's like, well, I've never had that situation before. It's the same thing with students. It's like, why don't you know this? They've literally never had the need to know that before.
Yeah. I just try to give a very general, like, where can you find the answers, basic foundation, I guess you can say. But I still make them learn HTML and CSS, which is funny because I get interior designers, I get photography students.
They're probably taking it as an elective. They're like, I need some fill, or oh, really?
Yeah, it's required for every single BFA major in which is why I get the students who are like, oh my gosh, why am I here? So I have to be a little bit.
I was about to say, it's probably just like when I did a BFA, and I'm like, why the hell am I in a ceramics class right now? And to this day, I have never needed, probably more now because considering getting a certification in like an engineering/design degree, just because I want to learn how to prototype and do props and things like that. But I've never felt a situation where I'm like, man, I need to get some clay and make something. I've never had a situation where I'm like, man, I need to squeeze out some acrylics and put a painting together. But I think, it gives you that appreciation. But it's kind of cool that interactive design is being considered like that, because I remember when I graduated with my hybrid print web design sort of degree in 2008, like, I don't think interactive design or even graphic design was really looked at the same way. Yeah. They had an advanced design class that was making a portfolio with like iLife, all things. Remember those? And I think that was the one everybody took. But as far as nitty gritty, doing everything that I learned, I don't think anybody outside of digital media learned it. So it's kind of cool to see that that's being taken a little bit more seriously. Because it needs to be. If you're a painter and you don't know how to code your own website to show off your work, you're screwed.
Oh yeah, I want it, and I tell my especially like the photographers and the interior designers. I'm like, if I can help you not get scammed out of a website because you at least know enough to be dangerous, I will be a happy person. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the analogy I always give people, they're like, why? Well, they're like, well, I could use Squarespace. It's like, yes, but what if you ever want to do something, beyond Squarespace? Yeah. It's the thing, and it's interesting because even in the web design industry, I don't think people are attuned to people making their own websites. I was doing a talk for Academy of Art, and someone mentioned the importance of having a website, and it was a web design student, and Melinda Mettler he comes to me and she's like, well, you have a website, don't you? And I'm like, well, I'll put it this way: if you're a web designer and you don't have your own website, you need to kind of reevaluate your life choices. It's interesting how many people just try to get away without showing anything. It's like that's your best takeaway, guys. You gotta put it in there. Speaking of art,
Huge tangent.
yeah, huge tangent. Speaking of art, though, Banksy has created his own amusement park. Have you guys heard about this?
Yeah.
Banksy, who is known for super gluing trolled artwork to the Metropolitan Museum of Art's walls and doing graffiti artwork, has basically done. I don't know how much of it is Banksy himself, but he's basically created a theme park called Dismaland, or Dismaland, depending on how you talk about it, which is basically Banksy's art turned into sculpture. There's a glitchy aerial. There's a SWAT team bus or truck that has been converted into a water slide, into this very sludgy thing. There's just a little bit of everything. The flyers for it show the Grim Reaper in a bumper car. It's a ridiculous park. What do you guys think about it? What are your reactions to Banksy doing this?
It's kind of crazy. I'm looking at it right now, and yeah, it's pretty dismal.
Yeah, well, I mean, by name, right? I mean, definitely got the.
Yeah, and he definitely used it has a Disneyland look to it in just the title alone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
the giant
and then he's got a Grim Reaper underneath it with a nuclear mushroom cloud.
Yeah, and of course the centerpiece is a janky, gross version of the Disney castle with a sculpture of a crashed, I think drunk Cinderella in it. So it's obviously poking fun at Disney, but not in an obvious copyright infringement way, like certain Korean theme parks, right, Jesse?
Right.
But it's interesting because it's Banksy being Banksy. You kind of see this continuing a trend of him. If you've seen the opening he did for Simpsons, where they're like throwing unicorns through a paper shredder to make filling for Bart Simpson dolls and things like this. This is Banksy continuing his trend, of course, of poking fun at modern consumerism, modern culture. You have and other artists are doing things that are very prophetic notes. There's one of them that's made a miniature city that's nothing but police lights. The only people in the city, it's after a riot, after some kind of event. It's just the media and the police occupying the entire city, occupying buildings. Very prophetic notes about the state of the world and everything. And apparently it's of course there's the 3D art. There's Shamu jumping off a toilet into a kid pool. There's a lot of sculpture, a lot of live actors recreating Banksy's famous works. There's some of them holding the bomb balloons, like his famous stencils. But the interesting thing is, it's a traveling exhibit. Like, do you think this would? I think it's in Germany right now. Do you think it would? Do you think people would go and see it if it was in America right now? Like, if they plunked it in somewhere in Florida, do you think people would go out of their way to see it? What if there's Disneyland and Dismaland side by side? How many people would go to that one?
Well, I think it would attract some people just out of curiosity.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and yeah.
I don't know if they would stay there for the day or just a couple hours or what, because
Mm-hmm.
I mean some of the stuff I see on here, it's pretty crazy. I mean there's even
it's not a happy place at all.
Yeah. There's even like a statue of a lady sitting down and she's just swarmed with pigeons.
Yeah.
I mean,
which I think that may be another Banksy throwback. I'm not sure. I haven't seen that one before, but.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's still very it's not very welcoming in any case.
Yeah. I mean, in the pictures, there's people there, but I mean, it's not packed like
No, it's not.
People are rushing to go see it,
Yeah. And when you enter in, you have this very articulated performance art thing of going through what apparently is a pun on TSA, where you go through a metal detector and it goes off. They give you a pat down. It's not a very welcoming experience going into it. the only way to exit it is to exit through the gift shop, which again is another Banksy throwback. That's the movie he created. But you have to leave through the gift shop, or they're going to hawk more stuff at you. Can you imagine souvenirs to this place? My goodness. And obviously it's again it's Banksy being Banksy. It's actually I'm watching this video now. The Grim Reaper's totally in a bumper car himself. The amount of performance art in this is very cool. Because when I first heard about it, I thought it was just like an amusement park full of sculptures, but no, it's apparently just a gigantic piece of performance art. I think it's fantastic. Everyone's wearing mouse ears, but none of them are looking thrilled.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a little short video too that I just started watching, and yeah, I mean, everybody looks depressed.
Yeah, I was looking depressed. Everything shuts down. It it's very interesting. It kind of flies in the face of even art and consumerism, because I remember going to the American Culture Association's national conference about 4 years ago, and there were artist presentations of like. There was an artist who, like, his entire body of work was simply cutting furniture in half and putting it on display. There was artistic debates about the aquarium tank with the tiger shark and formaldehyde, if that's actual art or not. And this is kind of Banksy bringing it back to the roots of, art should be a form of protest.
Well, I think he even has a poster on here that says it's not art unless it has the potential to be a disaster.
Yeah, and I totally want to steal or buy that sign. I'd probably just steal it. That's more Banksy-ish. because that's what I think that's what art should be, and I think that's what you look at a lot of modern art, and a lot of it is provocative, but some of it just doesn't feel like it needs to be there. Like, I remember seeing that when I was at the ACA, and this Russian dude's talking about cutting furniture out. I'm just sitting here for an hour just thinking, like, what is the point? And there's a lot of, and you could probably find a version of me in every decade who's just like, what is the point of Warhol? Well, what is the point of this Pollock guy? But it's interesting to have somebody to finally come out and be like, we need to talk about some things here.
Well, and I think it's a good commentary on the state, because right now we have a lot of consumerist art. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
You think about everything that is basically a throwback to some retro era or some fandom, or commercial. Like inspired art. It's not just stuff you can hang up on the wall. It's stuff that's referencing these consumer items.
Mm-hmm.
And see, that's what it kind of feels like to me. Is he's kind of like the distorted Ariel, and it's him kind of banking on the fact that this is something we know.
Exactly.
And I think it's clever as heck.
There's enough there for you to recognize it. You know where he's coming from, or you know what he's pointing at.
And it's one of those things where there's not a whole lot of artists right now. And maybe I'm completely wrong, but it seems like the people who are really making the money right now are those consumer-based artists, the ones that are doing like Star Wars throwbacks, and there's not really.
Are doing like pop sculptures, like people are doing like 3D printed little mini sculptures. Some way to get a reaction out of something, and it seems like the ones who are being really provocative. Obviously they're out there. There's Ai Weiwei and China, of course. There's Banksy, obviously, but. No one knows if they're making a living at it. It's like there's this artist I remember they talked about when I was at UNA called Null, who did like this just absolutely god awful art, and he would get paid multiple millions of dollars to decorate hotels, but none of his art. It was like a painting of a rose, and he had smashed up the frame and painted it to be part of the painting. People were just like, "That's it? You got paid." 6 figures or 7 figures to do that.
Well, that kind of throws back to that recent the artist
controversy.
In New York, the controversy of that artist in New York who took the Instagram photos.
Mm-hmm. Which one? That's everybody in New York, right?
No, this one. He was selling these giant canvas prints of an Instagram photo and comments of it underneath.
Oh yeah. I remember him.
Like
I don't remember his name though.
Yeah, he's getting like $65,000 a pop
Mm-hmm.
for these yeah.
That's almost like a. That's almost like a. Oh God, it's been too long since I've done art history. It's kind of like. It's kind of like a modern day Liechtenstein in a lot of ways. It's he's instead of comic book panels, it's Instagram and comments. And then you have commercial art. I remember when I was at UNA, there was a McDonald's down the road from UNA that was right down the road from the art school, and they had McDonald's Van Gogh paintings. Like it would be Starry Night, but it would have a McDonald's sign instead of the church. And every time I think of consumer-based art, I always think of that because the whole restaurant was full of those.
But see,
Instead of Van Gogh portraits, it was the Fry Guys. It was just ridiculous. But
yeah.
you know,
And that's exactly, honestly, I think that's what Bansky's trying to get at with this.
yeah, exactly.
There's so many artists like that. I mean, there's so many, I don't want to say repurposed projects. Not
There's
a
too
whole
many
lot.
Thomas Kincaids.
Yeah, well, Thomas Kincaid's with Stormtroopers. I mean,
Yeah.
there's too many people who are appropriating everything and creating something new from that appropriation, and not a whole lot of artists who are creating things that are new, and being successful at that. It seems like all the successful artists right now are these people who are combining these Van Gogh with the McDonald's type stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And the people who are out there, some of my favorite Instagram artists are the ones who kind of make me scroll through and I'll stop and I'll be like, holy shit. Like there's a lot of people who repurpose that. And they're all British, which I think is interesting, but they'll do like magazine clip art paintings and repurpose it. But like you said, repurpose it in a lot of ways, but they're doing it in a really fresh way. But and again, like you said, that's the thing Banksy's getting at. Is not enough of them are going like, wait a minute, are we talking about the right things? Are we even trying to talk about the right things? And it's definitely shock art. Banksy would not be who he is if it didn't grab you by the throat at every turn. If it was Banksy doing friendly paintings, everyone would be like, no. I mean, this is the guy who beat down a telephone box just to make a sculptural point. If he ever did any conformist art, that would just be the end of an era. so I'm glad he's out there. I'm glad he's out there creating new things. People, creating new things is the point of art. Always make progression. Always have a point with something. And it's fantastic. It's fantastic when it's done right. Speaking of making new things, the Mythbusters, who need no introduction, have recently announced that they are executive producing a show that's fundamentally about them in a really twisted way. It's like if you were drunk and heard the announcement, you would think it was about them. But basically they're executive producing a show with another executive producer who has done things like Buffy, Angel, Alphas, those kind of shows, to do a show about two special effect prop designers who basically get commissioned by the CIA to go on missions. Which I think is fantastic. I really hope Jamie and Adam have some cameos in it. It sounds almost like a MacGyver remake in a lot of ways. Do you think this will take off, or do you think it's going to fall flat?
Who knows?
Who knows?
The thing about it, I mean, you want to talk about a very combustible,
volatile situation.
Oh yeah, I mean, TV is definitely very interesting. You've got shows that you think are going to do well that don't even go one season, and then you've got these shows that you didn't think anybody was going to like that are just becoming really big.
They're on their 9th season,
Yeah, and you're just TV. It must be horrible to be a TV person right now, whether it's a producer or a scriptwriter or because there's so much going on with TV. And if it doesn't succeed as an actual show, does it become a web series? Is Netflix the is Netflix gonna pick it up? Um, who knows?
Yeah, and it's hard, and like you said, it's hard. I know a woman who used to be an assistant producer for NBC, and she said one time, "Don't ever let anybody trick you into being a producer," and that's probably all you need to know. But yeah, and sometimes it's the wrong network. Of course, Constantine had a rough time with NBC, flip-flopping about if they were going to cancel or not. Then they finally did. You have shows that that you try to continue the success of other shows, like you have Caprica, that is trying to tell the story of Galactica before Battlestar Galactica happened, with the young Adama before he was an admiral, and it didn't even. I don't think it even lasted a full season. I think it lasted maybe 3 or 4 episodes, and it finally died. And then you have like you said. Then you have, like you said, you have shows like Supernatural, which are not bad, but they got with the right network, they got with the right, they hit a vibe, and they're on season like 10 or 11 now.
Oh yeah.
And and like you said, it's always a gamble with TV, especially because, and there's always the chance, like Constantine, hopefully people are rumoring that maybe Sci-Fi or CW will pick it up because it's a better fit than NBC, which is justified to say. But if it doesn't, it's anybody's guess. And like you said, you never know if Netflix or Amazon are going to pick it up, because that doesn't seem to be the kind of thing they've been doing. It may not fit into their vibe. It's always, it's like anything else. It's hard to predict the success of a great idea based on who you're talking to.
That's true, because I mean, who would have thought that '70s show would have been such a big hit? Who would have thought, The Big Bang Theory?
Yeah.
And when that '70s show came out, I remember this too. When that '70s show came out, and it turned out to be a big hit, and I think it was
massive career-launching hit for almost everybody involved.
Yeah, that, and also they did another show called That '80s Show,
which didn't last a season. It didn't last. There's something there just wasn't something right about it. Yeah. And it's interesting with shows like that. It's like, how do you carry that same feel to a spinoff? Because for every successful show, there's been a terrible spinoff. Even with shows that are mega successful, like Supernatural, they had a spinoff show that didn't get off the ground. I think it didn't even get a season made. Bones, which is on season 10, had a spinoff called The Finder, lasted a season. Even though I thought it was great, I don't know if it got ended. I don't know if it ended just because no one watched it, or because Michael Clark Duncan died, who was one of the key characters in it, because he was the main character's legal advisor, which is just a great situation, by the way. It's a fantastic show, anyway. But you have Walking Dead teasing a spinoff. But it's interesting because I don't think there's ever been a spinoff that has really worked.
Mork and Mindy.
Mork and Mindy, yeah. But I think that's maybe the only one. Maybe the endless palette of Power Ranger shows, because they're all technically spin-offs of the previous one, but still.
Well, Laverne and Shirley was a spin-off of Happy Days.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think. Yeah. There have been a couple. I say
there have been moments, yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of a. You could argue if Mork and Mindy was an actual spin-off, but Laverne and Shirley definitely was a spin-off from Happy Days, and that one was really popular. I'm thinking. Well, you got the.
Well, look at the. I was gonna say, look at The Simpsons. I mean, it started off on what's her name? I can't remember that lady's name.
Was it Tracy?
Tracy Ullman. Yeah, you're right. The Tracy Ullman show. It started off on her, and look at it now. It's on its 8th season, I think.
Yeah, it is on. It is on the 26th season, according to Wikipedia. But it's interesting because I've never thought about it as being a spin-off show. I've always pictured it as being like, when I grew up into it in the 90s, when I was, when I grew up in the 90s, it was already an institution. So I never thought about it as being anything but its own show.
Well, and then you have the Star Trek. You have
and all those are basically spin-offs of each other. That's right.
Yeah. Well, right. Next Generation was a completely different field than the original.
And then you look at Deep Space Nine, you look at Voyager. They're all technical spin-offs of Next Generation, especially Deep Space Nine. It shared a a really interesting continuity. Torchwood with Doctor Who was another one. Sarah Jane Adventures with Doctor Who. So it has moments, but it seems like everyone's always like now Agents of Shield is talking about one. They're taking their two most popular characters from the show with Mockingbird and I think Hunter is his name. They're taking those and kind of flirting with putting them in a spinoff where they basically do the same thing, except they're just them instead of Coulson and the rest of the team. Yeah, and CSI has a numerous spinoffs. A lot of them have failed. I think the most recent one is about cyber forensics. I forget what it's called. Maybe it is called CSI Cyber, but all of those are spinoffs.
Law and Order.
Law and Order. Actually, Law and Order. What is the SVU is the surviving Law and Order, because the other one the original Law and Order has gone off the air for a number of years, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's and you could argue the success rates of all of them. Obviously, the ones that come out obviously don't have obviously aren't equally successful. What are some other ones that have hit the ground running in a couple of ways? Cleveland Show with Family Guy was good for a minute. I think they finally canceled it though.
Yeah.
A bunch of them are good. It's good, and I think the ones that are successful are the ones that always like successfully cross over with the parent show. When Doctor Who and Torchwood was at its height, they always had massive continuity crossovers. The season finale of the original season of Torchwood crossed over with the season 10 or 11, not season 10, yeah, season 10 or 11 finale of Doctor Who. Just in just the same minute Torchwood ends, that's when Doctor Who begins, and just things like that I think are great. I think the ones that fail are always the ones that are just like, well, we're just gonna do our own thing and not really phone home. So hopefully they'll all learn from that. It would be really interesting going back to MythBusters. It'd be really interesting to see what kind of a role Jamie and Adam have in creating the show, and if they have any kind of part of the show, like maybe they play a version of their characters that are kind of like, if it's like MacGyver, maybe they're kind of like the old guys in the parts attic, maybe like the cues to whoever the main characters in the shows are or something. Just something to keep it fun and kind of be a little more self-aware that, yeah, we know you're watching this because we helped create it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got hopes. I mean, excuse me. It's not like Jamie and Adam are not open to those kind of ideas, because they've been in CSI and a few other episodes. So hopefully they'll continue to do that. And again, with TV shows, it may not even get picked up. That's the Wild West of television production. So yeah, hopefully it will though. I think
if they have anything to do with that show, I hope it is successful. I mean, I love the Mythbusters. I think they're really cool. And they their shows have been entertaining and very informational and stuff. And I root for them. I'm rooting for them.
Adam Savage is almost anything he touches is gold. I know he claims no responsibility for the third Matrix movies or episode 1 that he worked on, but almost everything he touches is gold. He Jamie and Adam bought and helped curate content on Tested.com when they're not doing MythBusters. They recently reinvented the show. Because the three, Cary Grant and Tori, had left to pursue other projects, and now they're doing a live show. They've done a live stage show for a number of years. They're doing myths on stage, just to get people involved, and they everything they've been touching the past decade has turned to gold. So hopefully this will be the most recent part of that dynasty. Speaking of dynasties, though, Disney just got done with their own. I didn't realize this was a thing, but Disney has its own convention. We're in the heart of convention season, and Disney just got done doing a convention called D20. And Disney, who now, of course, in case you've lived in a cave somewhere, Disney now owns Marvel, Star Wars. They have their own properties. They own Pixar. They own like everything. They're the Galactic Empire of entertainment, and they announced a little bit of everything. So what have you guys seen coming out of Disney that got you excited last week?
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Star
Wars everywhere.
Yeah.
that poster that
The
John
John
Boyega,
Boyega poster,
it
yeah.
ended up being a special, like, exclusive. So I don't think that's the official poster, which makes sense. That would explain why things are missing from
Yeah.
it. Um,
It,
and they only had they had Riley and Boyega and Harrison Ford there, so that makes sense that they were on the poster. Um, so I was a little hard. I was like, oh darn, okay. So
hmm
that
hmm
kind of ended the speculation
Yeah.
on that poster for me.
Which would be interesting because I wonder if because they had John Boyega, they had Han Solo, and I cannot remember the actress's name who plays Kira, but it'd be interesting if those three were like the featured ones in the Star Wars arena, and that's why they got featured on the poster. Again, like you said, to be more of a commemorative thing for the event. It's interesting the poster didn't have any hearkening to the event because usually if you buy like a comic book cover or something that's exclusive, it's going to have a logo for it somewhere. Maybe it is, and Boyega was just that crafty with hiding it. I don't know.
Daisy Ridley.
Yeah.
Riley is the actress's name.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe Boyega was trolling
Boyega,
everybody. He's
sorry.
like, maybe they'll think this is the poster. I'm an agent of chaos. But again, that makes more sense because our speculation the last episode was that it was going to be was that things are missing that are obviously key to the saga. Maybe it's part of a three-parter. Maybe this isn't the official one, and it looks like it is indeed not the true one that everyone's going to see everywhere. So
Well, and it
that's exciting.
kind of going back to, and see, I don't know, because I know that when we were doing the Harry Potter books, first set I do have a lot of Harry Potter references, but when Harry Potter first started, if you look at the Marie Grand Prix covers,
Mm-hmm.
there's actually a lot of spoilers in the covers.
That's
Like,
true.
she had a
Especially if you read the books, you're like, holy crap.
yeah. And what happened was, as the series progressed and more things had to keep under lock and key, the covers lost detail.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first saw the poster, that's kind of what I was thinking. I'm like, oh, is this going to be like the Harry Potter books where they're trying to keep stuff so lock and key, and they know people are going to analyze the crap out of this thing.
Yeah.
The only way to keep the spoilers intact is to have a very plain poster. So that was my first feeling about it. But I am hoping for a nice, like, total immersion poster like we've had in the past.
Yeah, and I mean, especially with that same artist, that's the style he's known for, is creating a very rich, very detailed poster. It's interesting that you point out that it doesn't, the one that you're seeing isn't spoiling too much, because Hasbro recently announced the pull sheet for they're releasing all the toys at midnight over Labor Day weekend, which is a big event at Dragon Con for the Star Wars fan track. They're like invading a local Target to get all the toys, but the pull sheet it obviously didn't spoil everything, but you see some artwork that depicts Ahsoka fighting Darth Vader from Rebels. You have some of the stormtroopers on these like mini Imperial Walker kind of things, and it's not. I'm not going to say it's hardcore spoilers unless you look at the Lego sets, because they're kind of infamous for doing false spoilers for things like Ant-Man. But it's interesting that the artwork for that is kind of showing some more stuff they haven't necessarily announced or talked about anywhere else. And I wonder how J.J. Abrams, who is infamous for being very very like rolling, very 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 lock and key about what he talks about. I wonder what his reaction to that is going to be if it shows anything too incendiary.
I don't know. Well, Yahoo had an article today on one of the new toys. I can't remember what the character was called. Looked really neat. Kind of looked like a bounty hunter. And this character is supposed to be in the movie. And so I don't know.
If he's in that pool too, because I think I remember something like that, or maybe it was a Cad Bane or Boba Fett figure from the prequels or the original saga. I'm trying to find it right now.
Yeah, I'm looking for it too.
Yeah.
Sorry, nature calls. I'll be back.
Okay. Well, Joe, we'll just edit that out in post. That actually gives me a minute to find the Find this article. This is what I get for looking through Nerdist for topic ideas, and then finding something and being like, oh, that's cool, and not leaving myself a note to find it later.
That's what I was just saying to myself right now. I was when I saw the article on here, I was like, maybe I should save this. And maybe it'll
Here it
come
is.
up,
Here it is.
and
Here it
here
is.
it came up, and I don't have the article.
Yeah, it's called the one they're showing in Nerdist is called Hasbro's Ultimate Guide to the Galaxy, which is not a pretentious name at all. Pretentious isn't the right word, but you know. But it's interesting because actually I'll save some of these topics when Jess comes back. It's interesting that it might be spoiling details that they haven't showed in the previews, because like some of the things like the coloration of some of the planes are different color. There's black X-wings. Some of the TIE fighters have red paint on them. You know, it doesn't. You know, it's things they haven't talked about or specified. So it could be. My favorite one, by the way, is a Millennium Falcon that shoots Nerf darts. You can put the action figures in it, which is probably the thing I've been wanting since I was 6 years old. But it's interesting that is it Hasbro playing fun with the coloration, or is this something in the movie they haven't talked about yet? You know, because obviously if you get an X-wing, you want it to be kind of like Luke's X-wing when it's red. You kind of want to know if you like the pilot character from Episode 7. You know, you kind of want to get his X-wing for him too, and kind of designate it. So I wonder if it's Hasbro doing that to make it stand out. But then the Micro Machines ones do that too. They're having those. I mean, when was the last time you saw Micro Machines, for God's sake?
Oh God, it's been a long time since I've seen the Micro Machines.
It's been a decent 10 years for me, I swear. They have a Chewbacca Furby. It's like every toy Hasbro has ever made, they're having a Star Wars version. Like it's a Chewbacca Furby. They're calling it Furbacca.
Oh my God.
He speaks Wookiee. You can download the app and play force training games with him. It's Hasbro basically selling anything they could put a Star Wars logo on at this point.
Yeah.
They had the Black Series figures.
Gotta be a nice collectible to have.
I remember Furbies were an obnoxious collectible for the longest time. You remember when they re-released Furbies a couple years ago and people just went crazy? Like you couldn't find them in the toy shelves. It was just like it was just like the 90s again.
Yeah. And I had seen an article a while back ago about the very first Furbies, and they're highly collectible and
to this
really
day, they're almost as
highly
good as
valuable.
like the Beanie Babies. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably one of those things like old 70s toys. It's probably not that they're rare. It's just that it's really hard to find one that wasn't destroyed by a kid somewhere.
Or burnt.
Or burnt, yeah, exactly. But no, one of the Hasbro announcement toys was they have a Chewbacca Furby that's coming out. It's called Furbacca. He speaks Wookiee, and you can download an app to play force training games with him. I posted Hasbro's guy in Slack, but some of the things Hasbro is changing about Star Wars they're revealing are like some of the X-wings are like black and orange instead of like the white and red that you see in the trailers. And maybe it's Hasbro changing the colors, because if you like the lead pilot guy, I don't remember his name. If you like him, of course, you want to have his X-wing for him to fly in, kind of like when I was a kid. I wanted Luke's X-wing for Luke and nothing else. You know, maybe it's Hasbro changing it so it'll be easier for kids to recognize it, or maybe it's a detail that they haven't talked about in the movies too. And of course, they're changing the colors of things. You can get, of course, Chewbacca's gun is not orange like the Hasbro toy is, but It's interesting because even the Micro Machine version, which obviously you can't put a figure in, is black and orange too. Some of the TIE fighters have a red strip going down the line, which you kind of saw with a pilot in the second trailer, but no one has like talked about these discrepancies yet. And again, maybe it's just a toy, or maybe they're spoiling something somewhere. What do you think, Jason?
It's very hard to say. I mean,
yeah, it is.
Well, and the thing about it, and like I said, I know Abrams has to know that this is an option.
Definitely. I mean, you can't make a Star Wars movie not have merchandise. I mean, it's just a thing.
Well, and they make a joke. I mean, Spaceballs. If you've ever seen Spaceballs, I mean that's the biggest joke about Spaceballs.
Who hasn't seen Spaceballs?
Well, there's probably that one dude somewhere.
I mean, almost all of the jokes, especially once they get to, Mel Brooks's character, is all about the merchandising. Lucas was well known for his merchandising. It would not be a Star Wars movie without all of these toys.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, it's gonna be. I think we're gonna get spoilers, but I would not be surprised if Abrams like puts out things in a way that almost give us a red herring. Like, they're all accurate, but if you put them together in a specific way, you get false information. But once we watch the movie, we'll be like, oh, no, this is what it was supposed to be. We, completely goof that one up.
Lego is really big about doing that, too. I remember IO9 had this explosion when Marvel released the most recent Lego Superheroes kit, and it had Ant-Man, which I like. I like that the scene is so meta because it's the final battle in Ant-Man where they're playing in the kids' room. They have the toys and everything, right? And I think it's funny that Lego's being a little fourth wall with this because they have giant Legos that you can build with regular size Legos from the minifigures. But one of the minifigures included it was Hank Pym in an all black Ant-Man suit, and everyone's like, whoa, hang on, this could be massive right here. And turns out that wasn't in the movie, so I see what you're saying. Maybe they're throwing out things and people are gonna be like, holy crap, and then it doesn't actually happen. Because like I said again, this is a massive event buying the toys for Dragon Con. People are going to buy them. They're going to read into them no matter what they do, and it's going to be interesting to see the conclusions they pull from whatever makes it onto the shelf, right? People love the rumors.
Exactly. I mean, that's it. Well, in fan theories, I mean, it'd be really interesting. I think it's going to be really interesting because this is one of the first fandoms I've been attached to in this day and age, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And in the current environment that we're in, because even 5 years ago, the internet wasn't the way it is now.
At all, no.
And you've got J.K. Rowling just endorsed a fan theory on Twitter. And so everyone's been all excited about that.
All over that, yeah.
And so you've got situations where even the creators, the fans will come up with a theory, and then the creator's like, that could have happened. I didn't write it that way, but sure, why not? And then you've got the Pixar fan theory that talks about how Tarzan is actually Elsa and Anna's brother.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've just got a whole bunch of.
And then you have the Aladdin fan theory that it's really a post-apocalyptic wasteland.
Yeah.
that's how the genie knows all of the cultural references. But it's all interesting. And even if and what's going to be interesting, we've talked about this a couple episodes, is of course Disney is hopefully cherry picking the best parts of the expanded universe to use in the new one. That's gonna be my favorite angle to see people pick that apart in, is see how many references they can pull from the old expanded universe. That's another Dragon Con panel, is they're talking to my voice got James Earl Jones right then because I was leaning over the microphone, but they're talking to. I'm terrible with my names right now. They're talking to Chuck Wendig at Dragon Con, who wrote Aftermath, which is the first post Episode 6 book and part of what Disney is calling the road to The Force Awakens. And they're going to be talking to him, and I guarantee part of that discussion is going to be, what the hell did you look at to pull this through? Did you pull anything? Is Mara Jade in the book somewhere? And it's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be interesting to see the fandom kind of come to terms once and for all that the expanded universe might not be as dead as they think it is, but it might not be as alive as they want it to be.
Right.
I think the toys give a good insight into it. There's a lot of Star Wars related things happening at the beginning of September. That's going to be interesting.
Oh yeah, and I'm gonna be the first one in line.
I'm going to be the first one in line for Disney. Of course, they announced a gigantic Star Wars expansion to Disney World and Disneyland. You can fly in a Millennium Falcon. You can do just anything and everything Star Wars related. It's kind of like it's almost as ambitious, or in a lot of ways more ambitious than the Harry Potter, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter Universal. Star Wars is going to be like that for the Disney theme parks too, and that's got me probably the most excited. Most excited about a theme park since I was like a 12-year-old kid, because I remember going there when I was 11 and seeing the original Star Wars stuff and being like, holy shit, this is great, you're in the movie, there's a giant ad about to step on you and stuff like that, and like that was cool as a kid then. And seeing the ideas they have for it now, I'm gonna be like a 12-year-old seeing that stuff, whenever they finish building it.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be awesome.
It's
I
gonna be
can't
a
wait
thing
for
of
that
beauty.
too. Yeah, yeah. And I was looking at the little map that they had with all the different areas. And they're gonna have like Dagobah and Endor and just a lot of
I think
different.
they mentioned some about for the new trilogy too, obviously.
Yeah, Naboo's there.
Basically all your favorite areas. Yeah.
Hmm.
The existing Star Wars Tours motion simulator ride will be updated to include locations from Episode 7. I didn't even realize that was still a thing. Must be their oldest part. The Star Wars Launch Bay and interactive experience that will have special exhibitions behind the scenes for Episode 7, which kind of might be like the Star Wars Archive exhibit they had at the Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville a couple of years ago. It might be a revolving exhibition. They're rejigging the Jedi Training Academy, Season of the Force, which is a fireworks spectacular, which would just be fantastic. There's a lot of stuff. A lot of this sounds like things that they could launch like next week if they really put the effort into it. And then they have the larger, more expansive ones that obviously will take a hot minute to get built. But it's exciting, just like everything else Disney's doing. It's all in stages. Every time you go there, it could potentially, for the next few years, it could potentially be a new experience. And I don't think they announced anything Marvel related for the parks, did they? Or did they?
I don't think so.
Oh, that would have been cool.
I don't think so. I think when it comes to the parks, they mostly, which I mean, that's exactly what they. Honestly, I think that's a great idea on part of Disney. I mean, you talked about the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. That's a huge draw for Universal.
Yeah,
But
it
the
is.
thing about it is Harry Potter doesn't even compare to the fan base behind Star Wars. I mean, you're going to have people who are in their 90s who are going to want to see this, and
Oh yeah,
I,
definitely.
this is going to be huge and a big draw to Disney.
Yeah. And it's interesting. It's interesting you say that, because Star Wars, when it came out in the '70s, originally it was built by the fans. I remember seeing a photo of Mark Hamill and Lucas at like one of the original Comic Cons, and people were just like, "Who the hell are these guys?" And Star Wars, by and large, has always been kind of a fan built cultural phenomenon. And Harry Potter seems more like a marketing cultural phenomenon than a lot of ways. So Star Wars, I think, will always, arguably, I think Star Wars will always arguably overwhelm almost anything else you can have in Universal's arena. But not to discount that, because if they're looking at Wizarding World and seeing just all of the stuff you can do, because you can interact with the exhibits, you can, everything is built to make you feel like you're in there. They can take a slice of that, apply it to Star Wars, even more than they already are. That's gonna be a fantastic thing.
It's going to be awesome.
It is.
I want a lightsaber custom to me.
It's interesting. One of the and probably one of the worst things about D20 is they mentioned, kind of like how everyone's doing nowadays, they mentioned like the 5-year plan for almost everything that's going to be coming out. They mentioned Pixar's upcoming slate of movies, and it seems like almost every single Pixar movie, I think with the exception of the Good Dinosaur. Or is it The Last Dinosaur? God, I'm terrible. The Good Dinosaur. I'm terrible with the names today, so apologies. But it seems like every other movie past that is going to be a sequel of some sort. They have Finding Dory. They have the much anticipated Incredibles 2. They have Toy Story 4. Just a whole slew of sequels. Do you think this is the direction that Disney's ultimately going to always push Pixar in. Of course, Disney was infamous for doing this in a lot of ways in the early 2000s. You had things like Bambi 2 that came out that nobody really ever asked for.
Oh yeah.
Do you think this is a trend that Disney is trying to set for Pixar again?
Well, honestly, I think this is a cancer on everything, to be perfectly honest. I mean,
Tell me how you really feel, Jesse.
I am very upset with Toy Story 4. Toy Story 3 was such a good end cap that you moved on, you know. I thought it was great. And so that just absolutely, I was so upset. And I really have to question what John Lasseter's thinking. I said earlier in the program that how much I love him to pieces, but the entire industry, we kind of hit upon this last week as well. You have sequels and prequels and reboots, and it's going to get tiring, and it's going to just destroy the magic of the originals. Not saying you can't have a good sequel. If you've got it, I'm looking forward to Finding Dory. I think that
Incredibles 2 ended on an absolute cliffhanger that, you know, people have been waiting. When did the Incredibles come out?
Ooh, that was a while ago.
That was a while ago. Yeah, right. But I mean, if it continues as a true sequel that picks up that cliffhanger from The Incredibles, that means people will have been waiting. Oh my God, people will have been waiting 11 years to figure out what the hell they're going to do at Mole Man.
Well, Ellen made the joke. I mean, she would consistently make the joke about the Finding Nemo sequel. I mean, Finding Dory was like 12 years out by the time Ellen found out about it, and Ellen has just skyrocketed since then. But no, I think this is really dangerous. I was actually kind of concerned with the movies that they were putting out. The new Princess movie that they have. Did you guys see that one? It's a Polynesian princess, which I definitely I'm all for the diversity. I think the diversity definitely needs to happen. But I'm a little concerned. I don't know. I'm really excited about the story, but at the same time, I'm not sure if the audiences can quite connect with that. And maybe I'm just I was really excited, but at the same time,
is it the Lee Unkrich film? Because Pixar's website says it's an untitled Lee Unkrich film, but it doesn't show any images about it.
I think it was MoMA. And I'm probably butchering bad. Disney Princess. I'm not saying that and I'm definitely not saying that the next Disney Princess needs to be whitewashed. It's one of those things where we definitely need that. But it seemed like an odd choice, I guess, as for the next Disney Princess. And I was a little, because where's the Native American princess? I mean, we had Pocahontas, but any person can tell you that movie. I mean,
that movie.
Well, I mean, it's a great movie.
Don't make me talk about that movie.
Yeah, no, it was a great movie. It was well acted. The animation was beautiful. The music was great. But from a understanding Native American culture or even history, it was dismal.
Yeah, and you could arguably say that about probably any Disney movie. I mean, you look at Mulan especially, and it probably didn't hit those points too. But arguably, you know, it may have hit it or not hit it at a different degree. Than that.
Did a really good job of not pairing. I mean, it was still one of Mulan. I think. Yeah, there were some probably inaccuracies in it, but it wasn't the blatant, oh, we're going to have the 12-year-old Pocahontas fall in love with John Smith, when none of that actually happened, and Pocahontas' life was actually very tragic.
Yeah.
They literally just kind of picked a name, and that movie had no semblance to what actually would happen.
Yeah, and I think that movie was a victim of circumstance, because I think that happened when Disney felt the need to kind of create more to kind of do what they were known for doing originally with animation, with creating fairy tales. And I think basically it may have been somebody hitting the diversity checkbox. It's like, well, we need a fairy tale, and we haven't had a native princess, so let's combine those.
Yeah.
Because that's what, and maybe that's why Pocahontas is one of those movies I haven't ever felt the need to rewatch, even as a kid, because it didn't feel, and not even knowing the historical, not even knowing the history behind it. As a kid, of course, yeah, even then I was like, this feels dumb. I think that was the words I used to my parents. I'm like, this movie feels dumb.
So I'm just I want to hear more of the story before I can get excited about this one.
Yeah.
So there is one picture, if you've seen it, there is one picture that made me a little bit more excited about it than when I first saw it, and it's this, I'm pretty sure, like a volcano spirit, and she's holding the princess in her hand. It's just this giant volcanic, but still has a personification in it, and she's holding the princess, and I'm like, well, that's interesting. I might get interested in that, but I'm kind of worried about the Pocahontas effect here.
Yeah, and especially this is a Pixar that has not seemed to really jive with Disney in a lot of ways. If anybody follows Pixar's kind of history with with The Good Dinosaur, it's had a rough road as of late with Disney, and then as you were saying, the fact that they're making sequels, the fact that all they've announced are sequels, the fact that they've announced one that we don't really know how it's going to fit into, that we don't really know too much. It doesn't feel too good. And with some directors, some filmmakers, like if Studio Ghibli shows me, they can show, a 30-second preview of something, and it doesn't matter what it is, it's going to be amazing. It seems like the post-Disney Pixar, as you've been saying, kind of feels like a mixed bag in a lot of ways.
I'm just really worried.
It is because Pixar has been and deserves to still be a relevant force with anything. I mean, that's why Disney acquired them, right? It's the same reason that they acquired Marvel and Lucasfilm. These are groups that have formulated the history of modern movies. I mean, look at Lucasfilm, look at Pixar. I mean, they were doing amazing, award-winning, genre-defining things, and then Disney buys them, and it almost feels like in a lot of ways that Disney is relegating Pixar to being like the new Disney animation, and they really deserve to be something greater than that.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's funny you say that, because John Lasseter is the head of Disney Animation. I mean, he's not exactly connected.
Yeah, it's not like Pixar got scrubbed when they bought it at all. It's just interesting because now you have, instead of Pixar just doing their thing, now you have to. It's the design by committee thing. Now Pixar has to go and pitch their ideas to a board, and the board decides, what they want to make based on how much money they think they're going to make. And apparently, the answer to that is sequels, which doesn't feel good in a whole lot of ways. Because I've done design by committee, and it's one of the most soulless feeling things ever. For anybody in any medium, designing to please a room full of people is a very draining experience, and it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting, of course, we never will, but it'd be interesting to hear kind of Pixar's reaction to that. Just
Yeah. And I think,
I want to see the concept art that hit the trash can instead of hating the meetings.
I think with these sequels, Toy Story, first of all, I think they should have stopped on 3.
Yeah, 3 seemed like a good end note, and even 2 seemed like a good end note. 3 wasn't a sequel that I felt was needed, but just like Jesse was saying, it hit a note that was just like, okay, this is where it should end.
Yeah, exactly. And the Finding Dory, I'm actually kind of excited about that one. I really like the way Ellen DeGeneres brought Dory to life in Finding Nemo and stuff. And I think she's gonna make this character come more life out of it.
I agree, and it's things like that and Incredible that deserve a sequel, but the scary part is how are they going to handle that sequel?
Yeah.
Yeah. You just hope and cross your fingers that they do it, handle it right,
Exactly. Yeah.
and like The Incredibles. I love The Incredibles. Um, Maybe they might have taken a little bit too long to
Yeah.
do the sequel.
Because all these are approaching are into decades. Finding Dory, I think it's been 12-ish years, maybe more, since
Mhm.
Nemo. It's been 11. It's been at least 11 years since Incredibles, and well, Toy Story doesn't count. It's been about 5 years, but
Uh,
it's
yeah.
been an average sequel amount of time. But the other two have are approaching like Guns N' Roses album release amounts of time between their sequels.
Hey, Axl Rose and Slash just started talking again too
Yeah.
recently.
If only Maynard could get Tool working on another album. It's been about 12. It's been about 25 years, guys.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Disney has a lot of stock in my bank with what they're doing with Star Wars, with what they've been doing with Marvel. Hopefully, they've given Lasseter and Pixar the same amount of creative control that they apparently seem to be giving both of those properties. If not, I'm gonna be going all Angry Joe in that in a future episode and being like, "Look, guys, I don't know how to put this, but you fucked it up." And I really don't want to do that with anything Pixar related. I can't think of any movie I've ever not enjoyed with them. Obviously, there have been masterpieces that are perfect for me, like Wall-E. I thought was fantastic. Incredibles, I thought was fantastic. They're all perfect in their own merits. I've never felt terrible with a Pixar movie as I have with DreamWorks movies, with Disney animation movies. They're always consistently good, even if they aren't necessarily like Academy Award winning every year. But that's the reason Disney owns Pixar. And hopefully they realize that.
Well,
Yeah.
I just found out. Going back to it is Moana. I get Moana. Oh,
Moana.
Moana? Yeah. They've got The Rock Johnson cast on this, and he's going to sing. So I might have just gone up a couple pegs on my anticipation.
The Rock. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. There is a movie. Is it Be Cool? Is it Be Cool? It's Be Cool. It's the sequel to Get Shorty, which are fantastic books. They're fantastic movies. But The Rock plays a gay bodyguard of Vince Vaughn. Of all the things, and he keeps coming up to John Travolta, and he's like, I can sing, and he's like, I got a demo, and John Travolta is just like, leave it on the table, and and one of the special features is the music video on the demo tape, and it's The Rock singing "You Ain't Woman Enough to Take My Man." I shit you not, it's hilarious. But The Rock, but that's the first time I ever heard The Rock sing, and I'm like, holy crap. He's pretty good at that, and you don't expect it. The Rock is one of the few times I've ever walked away from a movie going, I was really pleased by that professional wrestler's performance.
Yeah. Oh, I enjoy seeing. I'm actually now like 10 times more excited about this because he's Polynesian himself. He's half
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, he is half Samoan. Yes. And half black.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, that makes me happy too that they're not like just picking random people. They're actually okay. So maybe I feel a little bit better about that princess movie. They better
Just a little bit though.
They better get this right because if it turns out to be like another Pocahontas, I mean, it's one of those things where there is a really dangerous line there because a lot of people don't know about Polynesian culture, and that was the thing that happened with the Native Americans in Pocahontas is there was a misrepresentation there, and if you don't have people connected to that culture, you can end up just spreading stereotypes, and it's just, no, I don't know.
And I'm under the impression Disney itself went through a leadership change between, like, the head of Disney between Pocahontas and now. So hopefully they've kind of ironed those issues out too. Because I believe Pocahontas was made in the same vein.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it was made around the same time that Disney had a culture of like promising Robin Williams, of like signing Robin Williams on the promise they wouldn't use the genie to market him, and they showed him one poster, and then as soon as he signed, they pulled out another poster that had his face all over it. hopefully they, I'm under the impression Pocahontas was made during that era, and
Oh
obviously
yeah,
they've changed it a lot since then.
Michael Eisner. I mean, you talked about the sequels and all of that. Michael Eisner, he killed Disney. I mean, it was one of those things where it was how much money can we suck from these franchises. And what's really sad is there were some really great original Disney movies that came out that no one ever heard of.
hmm Actually, Lester is the straight up chief creative officer of Disney now, so I think they're in good hands.
Yeah, as long as they give, like you said, the creative freedom to let Pixar do its thing.
But if Laster's the creative head, hopefully he wouldn't just cut his own. Hopefully he wouldn't shoot himself in the face over that.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, the new Disney. I mean, this is the studio that takes time to release those kind of things. They're still kind of douchey about doing the Disney Vault thing for DVDs. But this is the group that has gone back and they've refinished and completely finished Dali's Destino, that they worked on with Disney in the 50s that they never touched on, and they've worked a lot. No, I'm thinking about the Jim Henson Company. Never mind. I was gonna say they published a lot of things, but I was thinking about Tales of the Sand and things like that. But that's Jim Henson, which is another fantastic company. In case you guys didn't know. In case you haven't heard of this little thing called the Muppets. Which, by the way, Miss Piggy and Kermit I saw today have Tinder profiles because they broke up last week.
Oh gosh, the marketing behind that is just, and I love the Muppets because of that. They can get away with this stuff. I'm looking forward to this TV show because I think, kind of like, it's almost like Bansky, but in TV form.
Well, the ironic thing about the Muppet Show, a lot of people don't realize, is Henson intended for the Muppet Show to be like Saturday Night Live with puppets.
Yeah.
And it never really did that. Like, it had moments, but it was obviously geared toward kids, and of course this one is too. But if you see like the Muppet movies, you can tell where it's crossing that line where like adults are gonna get this, but kids are just gonna be like, what? And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, the Muppets have the ability to make some social commentary that nobody else can do.
Yeah, which is fantastic, and it's great that they're going back to those roots in a lot of ways. Lisa Henson has been fantastic with doing that with a lot of the Henson Company things. She's been a really good steward of her father's legacy. Even going so far as to commission Dave McKean and Neil Gaiman to do Mirror Mask because she felt that they didn't have a modern day Labyrinth. To the original storyboards for Tales of Sand, the serious thing he did while he was creating the Muppets, they released it as a comic book, which arguably is better than the movies. She's been a fantastic steward of carrying his vision into the modern age, and it's really exciting to see the Muppet Show continuing to do that. So.
Oh yeah, I'm glad that the Henson family has kept the legacy going.
Yeah,
I love the Muppets and the Muppet Show. I grew up with that. It was great, and it was sad, when Jim Henson passed away. But like I said, I'm glad that the Henson family kept it going, and it's still strong to this day.
Have you guys ever seen the Muppet stage show things they did a couple of years ago?
No, I don't think I have.
Oh God, I cannot remember what it was called. I'm frantically searching for it because my brain has just been today. Spiders, man, that's what they'll do to you. They'll screw you up. But no, the Henson Company came out with a traveling stage show, an off-Broadway show that was kind of their answer to Avenue Q, if you guys have ever seen that.
Oh, I have the soundtrack for Avenue Q, yes.
Yeah, and they have a, I'm going to have to find it and put it in there, but it was an after-hour show. They were very big on saying that it was not Muppets, but it was hand puppets, which I guess is true because there weren't any monster ones, because that's what the Muppets were, I guess. Depends if you want to split those hairs. But it was, you could see the puppeteers, and they made fun of that during the show. Like there was a Chihuahua and an old guy that was introducing the show, and he's like, and he's like, the second thing you see is going to be the show that's below there, and he's pointing to the puppeteers. This Chihuahua looks down, he looks up, and he goes, "You got a hand up your ass." And it's just this really irreverent adult humor, and this is the Henson Company doing Muppets after that. So I hope some of that character kind of carries over to this new show. Because it's just them doing. I think I think a lot of it was improv too. It's just fantastic, and I hope that carries over to the Muppet Show in a lot of ways. I know they've done the comic book show with or the comic book sketches with Boom, but oh man, it's a show I'm looking forward to. In case you haven't noticed.
Oh man.
It is that time of year. Speaking of that time of year, of course we have Dragon Con coming up, which Dragon Con kind of has a tough shtick because they are at the end of all of these professional conferences. Of course, there's things like Cincinnati Comic Con, more of the small town ones, but being over the Labor Day weekend, they are kind of missing. You know, it's after Comic Con, it's after D20, it's after WonderCon, it's after basically any other convention, it's after E3. You know, there's not many opportunities to reveal a lot of stuff. So Dragon Con basically is created for the fans. In a lot of ways, they have panels similar to Comic Con, but they don't reveal too much. So, what do you think might be the appeal of going there? Have you guys ever heard of it? Ever gone to it? Jesse, you seem like you might be a convention goer like me. Just a hunch.
I actually know somebody who is going to be at Dragon Con. He's with the 50.
Yeah, you know me.
Well, other than you, with the 501st Garrison.
Does he have Stormtrooper armor?
Yeah. So yes, I think there's just an appeal to cons because you can be with like people. And even if there isn't like these big reveals, you still get to like meet fellow nerds and feel like you belong. And even though nerdism has gotten quite mainstream, it's actually quite mainstream now. It's so much.
Quite.
I mean,
as we've talked in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I liked Harry Potter back when it was not the high school thing to do, at least where I was living.
You liked Harry Potter before it was cool?
I did, and same with Star Wars. Star Wars and Harry Potter were my two big things, and I just got a lot of crap for it. I got into manga and anime before it was okay, and you could buy stuff at Suncoast for it.
I totally missed the anime boat. I don't know what happened to me.
I think there is still but I don't think it's too mainstream yet. I think it's still something where kids get teased for. Like, they just had that story of the little girl who was a Star Wars fan, and they teased her because she was a girl. And
really?
Yeah, it was so sad. She just loves Star Wars. Well, the 501st Garrison like made her a custom Stormtrooper outfit.
That's cool.
And she got to meet Weird Al Yankovic. And
of all the people, I guess Peter Mayhew is busy. Just a little bit.
He was supporting something, but
Weird Al is kind of the patron saint of geek culture. So yeah. I mean, I can't imagine a better person to kind of represent that.
But I mean, no matter how mainstream nerdism gets, I guess you could say,
yeah,
there's still you know, the people who feel like they don't belong, and so the cons are a very nice way to be like, you know what, I know people. These are my people.
Mm-hmm.
We both love. So I think any type of gathering of that nature is going to have an appeal to people.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like some people go to sporting events. Like my father-in-law likes to do. I mean, he's one of those guys who has like a life-size inflatable elephant every time Alabama plays. Right? He's got it in his living room, for God's sake. Like, you know, this is, and Sendo explained to him last year that the Dragon Con is kind of like his love for Alabama, but for everything else that you know we're into. And you know, and it's interesting with Dragon Con because they embrace that, I think, more than Comic Con, because Comic Con is there to, I mean, you do have the cosplayers, you do have massive amounts of vendors, but at the end of the day, the purpose of Comic Con is to get business done. It's definitely a more professional grade convention, and Dragon Con is just like, you know what, we're never going to be ahead of the curve like Comic Con, so let's bring in people, let's bring in fan favorites, let's bring in, let's bring in volunteers, let's bring in people who are passionate about this, and let's translate that passion to people who are here, because everybody who's here is not going to be the fan. Is not going to be the fan favorite. I mean, it's not going to be like the biggest guys. Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford are not coming to this convention like they did at Comic Con. But Peter Mayhew is, Karen Gillian is, Battlestar Galactica is, the guy John Barrowman is, Timothy Zahn is coming in to do writing workshops, and it's just they're really embracing the idea that this could really be a fan convention. So I think they're doing a really great job at filling a niche that a couple of cons recognize, but they don't really focus on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Speaking of the cons, the Dragon Con has that potential. If it's not big now, it'll eventually get big.
Mm-hmm. It's massive. I think last year's attendance was like 75,000 people. I mean, it's big.
Oh yeah,
it's big for what it is, almost to capacity in those damned hotels.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and because I have an uncle that's been going to WonderCon in Anaheim these last 4 or 5 years, and it seems like, because he shows me video of each year, and it seems like there's more and more people all the time, and he only goes one day, and that's on a Saturday, and it is packed.
That's the worst day. That's the worst day to go.
Yeah, and next year, he told me that it's not going to be in Anaheim. It's going to be in downtown Los Angeles or something like that. And a lot of people are disappointed about that, but I still think it's going to attract a lot more people, And I told my uncle, I go, well, I'm kind of thinking the reason why they're doing that, because I believe it'll go back to the convention center, because the reason why I think it's going to LA, downtown LA, is because they're probably expanding the convention center just for that.
Yeah, that's true.
Or other events like that, and it's gonna attract the people, whether it's the cosplayers, whether it's the exclusive seekers, or whatever, and also too. The WonderCon took place about 2 weeks before that Star Wars gathering thing was supposed to happen there at the convention center in Anaheim. I don't know if you remember.
Oh, was it the celebration or?
Yeah, it was some kind of Star Wars celebration, and J.J. Abrams was there, and
the Star Wars convention.
Yeah, and and
I remember WonderCon this year especially was the first year I heard a lot of people mentioning. Of course, this was one of the first years I'd really tuned in, Twitter, Instagram, those kind of things, to conventions, and like you said, and I heard a lot of people talking about WonderCon. I'm like, well, what is this?
Yeah, yeah, and as far as the autograph seekers too, Peter Mayhew was there, some people from Battlestar Galactica, and of course Lou Ferrigno was there again. He's always been there.
Always.
And then plus they had a Superman panel. Everybody that worked with Christopher Reeve in Superman 1 and 2.
Oh, nice.
Were there. And they talked to them and asked them a bunch of questions and stuff. And I don't know if they signed autographs. They might have. And so I believe it was a really good con, and it's gonna continue to be successful.
Yeah.
And people are gonna want to be there.
Yeah, exactly. And DragonCon is great about that. They really try to make room for everybody. I sent you guys the photo, and sometimes they do it to a fault, because I sent you guys the photo a couple of days ago of the calendar. They have this app, and I can see their intentions, but it's not a very well made app. But you can star events and it'll add it to a scheduler. And I sent you guys the photo of it. I had like 4 or 5 different events on some hours that were taking place at the exact same time. It's interesting because the amount of scheduling they have, the amount of stuff they're trying to do at once, and the fact that everybody kind of fills in the convention centers to almost capacity. It's interesting because Dragon Con almost is almost at a feels like it's almost at a critical mass where they might need to kind of analyze where they're doing it at, what they're doing, what timing. Maybe it needs to be a week, maybe it needs to be in, I don't know, somewhere bigger than Atlanta. Of course, it's the Southern Convention, right? There's not any other ones that are that size that are in the Southern area. Of course, it's in Atlanta. So it's interesting because I think they're at a point where they may be having those conversations themselves about like, oh well, maybe we should reevaluate this. But I think they're going to do it always with the fans. They have prop making workshops. They have. I'm going to be in a shit ton of writing workshops and podcasting workshops with people like Tom Merritt, Veronica Belmont, Timothy Zahn, and Kevin Anderson, who I don't know if I'm going to be able to have full coherent conversations with any of them because of who they are. Stephanie DeLeonidas from Mirror Mask and Defiance are going to be there. But it's great. And just like Jesse was saying, it's a place where you can kind of recognize that culture. It's probably the only place where it's socially acceptable for me to talk to Tony Curran, the actor with a fake Scottish accent, and get away with it. Because I remember I came up to him and he's like, "Nice beard," and I'm like, "I like yours too." And he's like, "Where are you from?" And I'm like, "I'm from Alabama." And he's like, "Oh." I can't do the Scottish voice that yelling. Sometimes I'm not going to do it here, but I may have to record it if I do it again this year. But it's a fantastic event. And one of the things I like about it is they do a lot of comic book representation. You can go, and it's not like a sealed room like it probably is with some of the bigger cons like Comic-Con. You can go if you want to go and talk to Cameron Stewart, who does the interior arts and writing for Batgirl. You can just walk up and have a conversation with him. One of my favorite conversations at Dragon Con last year was talking to George Genti, who did the interior art for Buffy, and also just got done doing a run on Batwoman. Just having a talk for half an hour about what he uses to illustrate with, what his process is like, kind of what his inspirations are, basically doing like the kind of questions we would be doing in Radio Free Creative, but just sitting there and talking to the guy. You can come up, talk to him. I wound up buying an art board of his that he actually drawn, and it was just a more authentic feeling experience than you might get at some of the larger conventions, which I think is great for them because that's kind of the niche that they I feel like they're going for in a lot of ways, which is really cool. They don't sell convention exclusives. One of the things that was a big draw at Comic-Con this year was that Funko had I think 60 different pop vinyls you could get. There were people who were waiting an entire day in line to buy some of those vinyl statues just to say they had them. That was the same thing with NECA, a few other places. They had prop replica exclusives. They were all exclusive to Comic-Con. They had Comic-Con exclusive comic book covers. And Dragon Con does that, but it's not exclusive like that. If you miss out on Dragon Con, you're missing out on maybe one thing. So it's very inclusive. Of course, there are vendors who have been going to all of these who are going to, of course, hawk these things to you at probably inflated prices. But it's not. Of course, Dragon Con is the first one I've been to. Is the only convention I've been to. But getting to go somewhere and run into not Sean Ashmore. What's his name? Yeah, I literally ran into. Do you guys watch Warehouse 13 or did you watch Warehouse 13?
No.
No.
Warehouse 13. There's a guy who was in the show, Aaron Ashmore, who also played either him or his brother. He's got a twin brother. Played Iceman in the X-Men movies. And also plays in the Hannibal the Hannibal TV show. Anyway, I literally ran into the guy, full force, walking down an alleyway, smack, and it doesn't feel. And I think that's indicative of kind of Dragon Con as a whole because it's a much more intimate convention than Comic-Con, which is great. At least your day's going to be there, so that's all I care about.
That sounds right there, man.
Yeah.
One of the things I like about these conventions is how they have all these stars there. I think it's really neat, and people can interact and talk to them and stuff while they're getting the autographs, and that's pretty cool. My mom recently got me an autograph of John Saxon. Um,
Nice.
who would think that at these cons that actors from Enter the Dragon or would be there?
Yeah.
'Cause it
And
was
there's no telling. I mean, you
yeah,
can have video game voice actors, you can have movie stars, you
yeah,
can have
yep.
writers, and they're all in the same room with each other. It's great.
Yeah, exactly. And a couple years back, my aunt, one of my aunts, got the autograph of the actor um, Jeff Conway.
Hmm.
2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks before he passed away.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and she had a little discussion with him and stuff, and enjoyed that little bit of time. And yeah, 2 or 3 weeks later, we hear that he died, and that's
Oh
sad,
gosh.
And it was sad, with his problems that he had. But she got to enjoy that time and meet him and stuff before, that had happened. And but yeah, she got his autograph, and like I said, my mom got John Saxon's for me. My mom was a big fan of John Saxon back in the day when he was, up and coming actor and stuff, and so
Hmm.
that was a big thrill for her, meeting him and taking a picture with him and stuff, and so it's really neat how we can go to these conventions and interact with these actors and actresses and stuff. And even my uncle got, some of his favorite people that, one of the actresses from The Road Warrior, and um, uh, the actress from Tron. I can't think of her name. Oh, Cindy Morgan. He got
Oh
to meet
nice.
her and talk to her for a little bit and stuff. So yeah, it's neat. It's really good that they do this, and they do this for the people and stuff. So
Hmm.
that's what I like about these cons also.
Yeah. And DragonCon is very good about figuring out like what people want to see and trying to assemble most of the cast. Battlestar Galactica, which is a big thing, which is a huge thing I'm a fan of. I think everyone except Katie Sackhoff and Mary McDowell is going to be there. Which, if you guys have ever seen Battlestar Galactica, that's a gigantic ensemble cast, and most of the main ones are going to be there. Most of the people from Defiance are going to be there. They've got a lot of Doctor Who representation. Karen Gillan's going to be there. John Barrowman. And I don't know if they do surveys or if they just like figure out who got the most traffic last year or what, but they always seem to kind of hit it on the nose with the people they try to schedule, just like you said, to have those kind of connections. The only one I didn't feel that I got a real connection with was James Gunn, who, of course, had directed a little indie movie you might have heard of called Guardians of the Galaxy. Um, but it was interesting because him and his brother, who, if you don't know James Gunn's his brother, he did the motion capture for like Groot and Rocket and a few other characters. It was interesting that they were in the same table, and his brother had like a quick line. I got a Rocket Raccoon autograph by him, and I was out in like 10 minutes or under. And James Gunn, if you weren't there at like 7 in the morning, you weren't going to get there. He had such a line that even when they cut it off, there was still like a 6 or 7 hour wait to get an autograph from him. It was just like a Six Flags amusement park ride.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine. There's probably maybe 4 people I would wait in line for, but man, it was so many things. But James Gunn, of course, was on Instagram, kind of trolling the whole thing. He's got if you guys have seen Guardians, of course, there's that scene at the end where Groot's in the pot and he's dancing, but he freezes when Drax looks at him.
Yeah.
There was a giant scene where James and his brother recreated that with like a 2,000 person crowd, all wearing Guardians of the Galaxy outfits. They were talking, they're all dancing. They turn around, the whole crowd freezes. Just he embraces it, and he's kind of like the personification of DragonCon in a lot of ways, which is cool. Speaking of fan power, the last topic we have is of course Joseph Gordon-Levitt is who you guys might know from acting alongside Emily or Zooey Deschanel in 500 Days of Summer and a few other movies. He was Robin or not Robin in Dark Knight Rises. Has an online thing, an online platform called Hit Record, where it's kind of a it's kind of like a crowdsourced TV show where they put out topics. They put out topics and people kind of flesh them out. And he finally produced an actual TV season, and it's on Netflix right now. And I haven't seen it too much. I haven't seen too much, but what I have seen is pretty cool. It's almost like a Twilight Zone in a lot of ways. It'll pick a topic and it'll go with it. Apparently, they outsource everything from the editing to the writing to the kind of the concepts, if you will, even the names of the episodes. What do you think of that as being a viable platform for TV? Of course, we talked about like the design by committee. People are a lot of businesses like to keep everything kind of closed doors and just kind of present them on a platter to an audience. What do you think about a production group that does the opposite of that? And it's like we're just here to provide ideas and make them, and you have to create everything else. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think it's it's an interesting debate because it's almost very similar to the debate between Apple and PC. I mean, you've got some people who, there's definitely advantages to having that closed circuit system. But there's also advantages to just kind of grabbing a bunch of parts at Radio Shack and then seeing, what will happen out of it. So I think it's definitely, and it could be the kick in the butt that the industry needs to. I feel like we're just stagnant. I'd like to see this honestly with movies. I would love to see, and more than even independent films are closed circuit entities nowadays. So I think it would be great if, you had that crowdsourced one, Kung Fury.
You had a couple of them. You had Kung Fury. You had Veronica Mars. You had Zach Braff's thing. Wish You Were Here, or God, what is that? Oh God, I'm doing it again. You had Zach Braff do the same thing. So there's been kind of a history of crowdfunding movies, but nothing that really kind of pulls the source material, I guess, in a lot of ways. Well, there's Snakes on a Plane, I guess. But, that's not really a shining example of it.
I think it could turn out really, really well. And then you've got the YouTubers coming in and just showing up the TV shows.
Yeah. And even creating their own content. Of course, that's what Felicia Day is known for. Besides being a cameo role in commercials, was she created the Guild and ultimately created things like Geek and Sundry, which is her own basic television network on YouTube now. And a lot of people are starting to respond to that. Of course, Legendary just bought her company. I think that's empowered people like Gordon Levitt to kind of leverage things like Hit Record. People are taking it kind of like how modern TV is taking Amazon a lot more seriously now that they've won a bunch of Emmys.
Yep.
It's like now they're taking the internet the internet as a medium or as a source of the medium more seriously because of people like Felicia Day.
Yep.
It's fantastic, and of course Gordon Levitt is it's interesting because he's kind of combining it in two different ways, because he's sourcing it on the internet, which is new, and then he's distributing it on Netflix, which is arguably traditional nowadays. So it's almost like it's a happy medium between the two, and it's open source. You can join anytime you want to, but it has to be quality content. I think they do spell out several times that if you post bullshit or plagiarism, you're going to get banned for life. So in other words, they're not going to make Twilight fan fiction anytime soon. So
all they have to do is change the names, and then
All they have to do is dub over the names, and I think it's a great idea. Crowdfunding is a great idea.
Yeah.
And just as long as it's used right and it's effective, because that brings up something that I remembered an article reading about a game. Oh man.
Well, there's a right and wrong way with the games too. Remember the what is it? The Star Empire.
Yeah. Oh, there's a game
forever.
It's not out yet, but it is crowdfunded, and the company is supposedly working on it. But people that have contributed to this game starting to get upset with this game company because
Yeah.
they're like, okay, you're making these ships that we can buy already, but we have no game that we can use these ships on.
Hmm.
You know, and so yeah, these people that funded or uh, gave money to this company, they want their money back now.
Yeah,
You know.
it's kind of my beef with some Silicon Valley startups. I had a giant Twitter fight earlier this year with Coin to get $50 back because I backed it 3 years ago.
Oh
And
wow.
Navdi is feeling the same way because I backed this car navigation system of theirs, which was cool 2 years ago, and I gave them $200, and I haven't seen it yet. It's allegedly coming out in the
Oh.
fall. I think Levitt is doing a really good job with this because instead of like money, like you go to Kickstarter and it's like, okay, for $50 we're gonna put you into like I think for $100 on Zach Braff's movie, I'm listed as a music producer with 100 other people.
Mhm.
Instead of asking for money, he's doing the opposite. He's like, well, we've got money. He's like, we need something. We need a commitment of you to provide the skill and the talent to make it what you want. It's almost like the reverse. It's almost like it's almost like the Bizarro Kickstarter because
Mhm.
he's like don't worry about money. We're not asking for that. We're asking for your ideas. And depending on who you ask, that might be more valuable or not. I don't know how they handle crediting who comes up with it. I think it's in the. I think they spell it out in the credits, but if it takes off, it's interesting to see because it's a new thing. If it takes off, is Levitt going to take the credit for it all, or is he going to be like, look, I'm just the conduit for these people?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess is always the eternal thing with any kind of collaborative effort is who ultimately, kind of like the Steve Jobs debate, going back to the Eising book, who ultimately deserves to take or honestly deserves the credit for the success of something if it's done by a handful of people.
Mhm.
But it's interesting. It's interesting. It's the first thing. We're always pursuing new media. A couple of years. 20 years ago, video games was the new hot media for doing anything that you couldn't get a TV show or anything made. Now it's the internet, and now it's kind of coming back full circle. Now Levitt's using the internet to get it on TV. And it's interesting hearing him talk. He was on Nerdist a couple of months ago talking about how he wanted to make a choose your own adventure movie, but the logistics of it were just not going to make it happen. Where like if you were like the audience could like collab, kind of like a dinner theater, the audience could like collaboratively choose how the movie's going to progress and end, like a choose your own adventure book. And he views that as the future of cinema. Nowadays they have the interactive trailers on YouTube, but it's interesting to hear guys like that talk about the medium because in a lot of ways it's as exciting as Steve Jobs talking about computers in the 80s because
Yeah.
give it 10 years and there may be a choose your own adventure
Well,
thing. Everyone sits down, puts on an Oculus Rift or something.
well, didn't the game, and this is going back to that game class I took. There was a game called Dragonlance.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was kind of very similar, and it was very ahead of its time, and that was kind of the downfall of it.
I think
Um,
it's not Dragon Age, is it, or is it?
no, it's Dragonlance. Yeah,
Okay.
I just looked it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Um,
that was actually one of the first book series I read too. So
yeah.
I wonder if they're related in
I
any way.
I think they are. I'm trying to look. I know that Don Bluth
Mm-hmm.
did the animations for it.
Okay.
Um, Dragon's Lair. Oh, I was wrong.
Dragon's Lair. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Dragon.
I was
Remember that.
wondering.
Yeah, 'cause that's really, when did Dragonlance get a video game? I know
Oh
Elder Scrolls is in the same universe,
yeah,
but
Dragon's Lair. Yeah. Okay. So
I remember this. Yeah, because my cousin played it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's all
and
I was gonna say.
yeah, but I mean, I think that it could definitely be possible. I mean, they did. Oh wow, it was a laser disc video game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dragon's Lair and Space Ace.
Yeah, because it came out. Yeah, it came out in 1983 originally in arcade. So yeah, it was right on. It was right on the cusp of doing that. And I remember people were playing that in the early 90s too. Like that and Monkey Island were basically like the two games you had to play in the early 90s.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And basically the same ideas. It was very very ahead of their time, very interactive, and But yeah, Dragon's Lair, I remember that because it did play out like an interactive video or an interactive movie in a lot of ways because it was animated. It was, I think it was a text adventure. Like you clicked on it and did an action, so it was literally an interactive movie in a lot of ways. And it's interesting because that was ahead of its time. People loved it, enjoyed it. But then you had video games like Beyond Two Souls and Heavy Rain, that in a lot of ways are interactive movies nowadays. And what was it, the 1883, The Order, and people hate them nowadays because they're like, I can't do enough. Can't do enough. I just choose and watch them. But I think eventually those two mediums are going to merge, and it's going to be kind of cool when that happens. Yeah, more than they already are.
No, I think we are going to go in that. Interactivity is just becoming, whether it's just collaboration, and it is an interesting time because who does get the credit for that stuff, and do we really who gets the money? I think is probably the more important question to ask there. It's just, oh my gosh, collaborations and Kickstarters, and it's what a time.
What a time. Yeah, and Kickstarter it's interesting that Kickstarter is gaining as much popularity as it has because it's still a new thing. You can still, and Hit Record probably does the same thing too. For every successful episode you see, there may be like 12 that didn't get made or fell apart.
Yeah.
Kind of like a bad class project, Well, they didn't do this, so we're all gonna fail. Thanks a lot, dude. But for every super duper successful thing, you always hear about the things like Oya's that they backed all this and promised this and ultimately didn't deliver, or it didn't deliver as greatly as they were going to give, or like, hey, you're giving us this stuff, but when can we actually use it? So it's interesting because just like any other new medium or any other new way to use a medium, there's going to be growing pains, and I think that's kind of what we're experiencing now with this. But it's gotten more to the point where, obviously, since you're seeing it more, it's more acceptable. Because I remember even 2 years ago, if you said if you're going to put something on Kickstarter, people would be like, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah.
This ain't going to work. What? But now it's an empowering thing. It's like Airbnb or Uber. Well, Uber's probably not the best example nowadays, but it's all about giving control to people who traditionally aren't in control, and it's a beautiful thing when it's done right. And I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt is on the right way. I'm going to finish watching season 1 before DragonCon because that's some of the panels I'm doing about some of the panels I'm going to about podcasting and crowdfunding. This would be a really cool thing to talk about. So. Hopefully they'll keep doing good and cranking stuff out. Hopefully we will too, eh?
Oh yeah.
Because we're totally in the same room as them. It would be so cool. I would love to do a scripted web series, but oh man, the production value in those nowadays are even approaching Hollywood movies.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and Felicia Day talks about that in her memoir she wrote. When the guild ended, it was like everybody was shooting, web series in their garage, and nowadays you can play it side by side with a Hollywood movie, and there might be a little less impressive explosions done in After Effects by an amateur, but the rest of them are pretty cool. Well, cool. That's all the topics we have today. If you like what you're hearing, comment, subscribe. We always have new things in the works. As you probably heard, I'm going to do my best to cover DragonCon in a variety of mediums. I'm going to get Nerd Block, Loot Crate, and Marvel Collector Core all on Wednesday. So I'll hopefully have a video shot that's comparing all those. By next Monday after this coming one, Monday after tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. And if you like us, let us know. We'll keep churning out good stuff. We'll keep improving, and catch you next week.
See you, everybody.
See you later. Have a good one.